don't achieve the rank of colonel by being a slacker. You don't get chosen to work with defense contractors on behalf of the military without the requisite skills. Mike Brown's career in the military was on an enviable track. His personal life was an entirely different matter.
I don't know why I was like that. I don't know how it got so bad. I do know that I was physically, mentally, and spiritually broken. I had no will to live. I had lost all sense of hope.
For a while, it was as though Mike was living two separate lives. As time went on, the uniform began to feel more like a costume.
I didn't want people to see behind the mask. I wanted to be as camouflaged as it could be, but in front of me, what I wanted you to perceive was a confident, courageous man.
That's the Mike Brown that Anne-Marie met at an outdoor concert in Hampton Beach. A good conversationalist, a single parent, just as she was, and a dog lover. He worked hard to make a good first impression.
Never talked about his deployments or anything like that, but would talk about current work.
And so I faked it with her in the sense that I wanted to get into a relationship, but I want you to see the front side of the mask only, because you wouldn't like the backside.
Looking back, of course, there were signs, more drinking, more belligerence, but sometimes we make excuses or believe the ones we're told.
He had been hospitalized, but he said he had been panic attacks. Later on, when things really escalated out of control, I found out that panic attack was actually a suicide attempt, and his landlord had called the ambulance.
But by that time, Anne-Marie was all in, making excuses of her own.
I'm called Household 6. I handled everything at home. Part of being Household 6, there's no problems at home. So everything had to stay contained in the house. I'm a very open, honest type person. Here I find myself lying to people, ignoring situations, no longer associating with my friends because they can't find out what's going on in my house.
Mike went to rehab several times for his drinking. He did have a heart condition and was able to hide the reason for his absences. But the drinking always resumed, and the facade of normalcy wore thin and eventually collapsed. It was the loss of his dog that shattered the illusion, and Mike himself.
He was threatening to get the gun and shoot himself, and I said, "Are you serious?" I says, "Well, bad is life," because I didn't know what PTSD was. I wasn't over there. I didn't understand why he couldn't rationalize, "That's not you."
See, I held myself accountable for anything that went wrong. You know, there's some things I just couldn't control, even though I thought I could.
It's very common to misinterpret causality, so you are to blame for leaving your buddy behind, and it should have been you and not them.
Anne-Marie was desperate. She heard an ad on the radio for home base, and it hit home with her.
What they were saying on the radio was my life. And I called Mike at work and I said, "Look this up on the computer," because I did, and this is where you need to be.
Mike was eventually enrolled in the first cohort of the intensive clinical program. Yes, he wanted help, but he was skeptical.
I mean, I had a lot of doubts. You know, why home base? What magic recipe do they have? You know, the other choice you really had in my life was dead.
That is not an exaggeration, and unfortunately, it's not at all unusual. Suicide and suicidal thoughts are all too common.
I've lost more soldiers to suicide than I have in combat, and I don't want to lose another one. When you meet the parents of somebody who's been lost when they come home, there is no greater tragedy. They survived combat. They should be able to survive America. The
ICP was designed to give veterans the skills they need to survive reintegration. compressing nearly a year's worth of therapy, work on coping skills, and alternative methods to deal with post-traumatic stress into a comprehensive 2-week program.
They have a staff of super individuals with great spirits and compassion, where that trust was a key ingredient to opening up. Why was I like that?
Because Home Base understands that the only way to heal the veteran is to heal the family as well, Anne Marie was an active participant in creating a new family portrait.
They would ask the soldiers, do you mind sharing this with your spouse? And it was some of the artwork that of just masks, of the mask that we see, and then a behind the scenes mask. Home Base allowed me to understand what PTSD was, why he was acting the way he was, how, when he's acting like this, can I help him?
Because you can come in these doors, no matter what your economical or social status is, and get the treatment you need, not just for a week or two, but for life.